artistry, the quality of submissions for this contest were truly extraordinary. Now, it's really important to note that what Mainers will be voting on is the content of the law. And I quote, "The question that will be on the ballot, which will be question 5, do you favor making the former state flag replaced as the official flag of the state in 1909 and commonly known as the pine tree flag, the official flag of the state?" So the law itself details and actually is identical to the law that was in place in 1901 for the 1901 Maine state flag. The law detailed, and this was the design rules, that the flag must be, quote, buff, charged with the emblem of the state, a pine tree proper in the center, and the North Star, a mullet of 5 points in blue in the upper corner, the star to be equidistant from the hoist and the upper border of the flag, the distance from the 2 borders to the center of the star being equal to about 1/4 of the hoist, this distance and the size of the star being proportionate to the size of the flag. So we had over 400 submissions that met these criteria. And it is important to note that should the voters approve a return to the 1901 state flag, almost all of those submissions will qualify as versions of the official Maine state flag, because the law is the words that I just read. That being said, as secretary, I am required to deliver a model to the Adjutant General of the National Guard for display in the state. Now, we have here in my office multiple versions of the Maine state seal. You may notice that the seal used on this screen is different than the seal used on the podium, which is different than the seal behind me on the wall. I have a poster in my office that shows that the Maine state seal has changed many times over the 200 years that the law for the seal has been on the books. Similarly, the current Maine state flag, the 1909 Maine state flag, differs from Maine state flags that you might see in the State House. Indeed, I have one here that we distribute to people interested in Maine state flags for schools or groups that is actually completely different than this one, even though it is the official Maine state flag. So I really do want to be crystal clear that those Mainers who are producing flags in homes and dooryards displaying their ideal of what the pine tree flag looks like, what the 1901 flag looks like, can and should continue to do so, and do so proudly if and when voters vote yes on question 5. Those flags hanging in dooryards and displayed in homes will be the 1901 Maine state flag in its modern incarnation. That being said, I was particularly touched, and I do want to touch on the process. I and members of my team here, Deputy Secretary Joanne Bautista, Deputy Secretary Lilia DeAndrade, and Maine State Archivist Kate McBrien, reviewed every single submission. And from those submissions, chose 10 finalists. We then brought those 10 finalists to a group that I convened of advisors. Senator Tim Nangle, chair of the State and Local Government Committee, Senator Rick Bennett, Republican of Oxford, Representative Maureen Terry, Democrat of Gorham, Representative Caleb Ness, Republican of Freiburg, the Honorable Sean Paulus, who is no longer in the legislature but was the originator of the bill, the Honorable Gerald Talbot, a Maine historian and civil rights leader in our state, Maine State historian Earl Shuttleworth, and Dr. Chandra Bimal, an anthropologist from Colby College. They came together and reviewed those 10 finalists and recommended this incredible design. And for the last year, since I knew I was going to have this duty, I've been looking at pine trees everywhere I go. As I hike, sometimes when I'm riding in the passenger car with my husband down Maine roads, and I've been thinking about the pine tree proper and what that means. And I am so incredibly delighted to announce that Adam Lemire of Gardner, an architect, this is his design. We're going to show that design, and then we're going to invite Adam to say a few words about how he arrived at this design, his process. So, with no further ado, I'm going to put my papers down so it clicks over. So, Adam, would you like to join me in briefly discussing your design?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so the competition laid out very specifically 5-pointed blue star, as you said, buff background, pine tree proper. So the way I interpreted this was eastern white pine, right? That's the state tree. So I thought it most appropriate. So, you know, I thought about it for a while. I had a lot of different ideas, but ultimately I came up with what you see here. I took walks with my 3-year-old, both at the Capitol Park just outside of the State House, as well as Viles Arboretum, which I go to often. And ultimately, this is kind of an amalgam or combination of many trees, but it's mostly based on a tree in Governor's Grove, also in Viles Arboretum. So yeah, I basically was trying to make a simplified, you know, somewhat realistic looking tree, but still get the feeling of an eastern white pine. I made 16 branches coming off to represent the 16 counties. That is not specific to, you know, the bottom one isn't a specific county, the top one isn't another county. It's just a number 16 for 16 counties. And yeah, I had a lot of fun doing it. As I was doing it, I found that I was trying to find some inspiration beyond just the eastern white pine, and I found that it kind of reminded me, as I was doing it, as I was drawing it by hand, of you know, the peninsulas coming off of Maine, you know, the rocky shores, as well as the inland lakes as well. I just feel like there's kind of a liquid, watery form to it. So yeah, that's basically it, and very excited that my tree was selected. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you want to share anything else about the timing? Or?
Oh yeah, okay, so so they know. So, you know, this was due on a very specific date, and my partner was pregnant with our child who was imminently coming, and we actually went to the hospital before I submitted, and I actually submitted as she was being induced. The doctor said nothing was happening right then, so it wasn't, she was sleeping while I submitted, but I basically knew I wouldn't have time after the baby came, so, and I was right, so. Anyway, so thank you all who participated in the selection process. I know it's difficult, so.
We are happy to take questions if you have questions, and
yeah.
Actually maybe I'll come a little closer. Any questions for members of the press? Yes.
What was your 3-year-old's reaction when you found out that your design had been selected?
I think his mother just told him this morning. I haven't told him because I was worried that he would tell other people. So I'll let you know later.
Is there anything logistically about the state flag? I know like license plates have like a limit on like how many colors or something to that effect. Was there anything logistically that sort of constrained the design, or was it just sort of open-ended within that criteria in the law?
So it's pretty open-ended. I tried to keep it fairly simple, limited colors. The original 1901 or 1908 flag, a lot of those were painted, so they would have kind of infinite colors. I didn't think that appropriate for a more contemporary flag, so I tried to limit myself to 3 colors, so the lightness of the pine trees and pine needles in sun, the darkness in shadow, and then the the trunk. To answer your question, there are a specific number, I'm not sure exactly, somewhere 50s to 70 Pantone colors that flag manufacturers will be using. So this will be adjusted somewhat, but based on this. So the yellow might, the buff might be a little different, the green might be a little different, so on and so forth.
That's right, and I do want to appreciate the North American Vexillological Association. They have 72 Pantone colors that flag manufacturers use for traditional flag manufacture. So when the design is delivered to a flag manufacturer, they may choose those specific Pantones to model the flag. And again, when you look at the actual design that will be in your inboxes, the background is much more buff than what you're seeing on this computer screen. Really is those colors, making them faithful is a little tricky.
So as voters need to decide what to do in November, where should they look to compare the flags before they vote?
We will include images in the voter guide, and we will use the original electronic submission that was submitted to the flag design portal by Adam for publication in the voter guide, as well as an image of the Maine state flag.
For Adam, how much have you followed the debate over the past year? Is obviously kind of like a political thing at some point with needing to pass this law to let us consider the flag. Is that something that you had closely followed while it was happening at the State House, or was it more of a, okay, I guess I can submit a design now?
I did not follow it whatsoever. I'm a hiker. I love trees of all types. I'm a designer. I'm an architect in Auburn, Maine. And so I thought this was just a great opportunity that the state opened up to people here and apparently across the world. Submissions came in. So I love flag design. But no, I didn't follow the politics background. So I'm sure I'll find out about it now. But.
And just so you live in Auburn as well?
Oh, I'm sorry. I live in Gardner.
You live in Gardner but work in Auburn.
Exactly. Yep.
And Shanna, can you remind us how fast the process took once it was narrowed down to 10? We had the advisory council. Like, how many days or weeks did that take?
So I want to thank the deadline for design submissions was approximately 2 weeks ago. It was 2 weeks ago Friday. My staff took the week that I was on vacation to look at designs. I came back and starting on Monday, started going through all of the designs. I waited to see my staff's recommendations for finalists until I had reviewed all of the designs. And then I brought together a very distinguished group of informal advisors on Friday. So it took us 2 weeks from the deadline, and ultimately, remember, should the voters decide to return Maine to the 1901 Maine state flag, any and all interpretations of the pine tree proper and the star will be legitimate interpretations moving forward. My responsibility was to take the flag design contest and pick one to be displayed by the National Guard to be delivered to the Adjutant General. And that is this one. And my final decision took me about a week's time. Yeah.
This is a simple question, but why did you choose it? Choose this design?
It was really important to me that this be a consensus recommendation. It was really important to me that this was a design that spoke to members of my team, to historians like the Maine State historian Earl Shuttleworth and the Maine State archivist Kate McBrien, that spoke to Republicans and Democrats alike. And it was not lost on me that Senator Nangle and Senator Bennett both enthusiastically endorsed this particular design of the finalists. And I think that unity in this process is really important. The symbols that represent our state, whether it is 1901 in its modern incarnation or 1909, are important because they unify us as Mainers. They remind us of our heritage, of the things that we treasure, like the eastern white pine, the North Star in the Maine sky. And so from my perspective, I wanted to create a very inclusive process, both in the design contest that was open to people from all over the world, but had such tremendous participation from Mainers, and in the advisors who helped me narrow to this final selection.
And did you face any sort of pressures from political groups or commercial groups during this process?
I did not. We did not invite any outside input beyond those who advised me in this process. Certainly some people shared emails, but again, I was really focused on waiting until the design process closed and then reviewing the designs on their own merits. It was a blind process. When we were looking at all of the submissions, this team did not know who had created which design. You will see in your inboxes a graphic of the 10 finalists, and you will see that they have randomly generated numbers, and that's how we talked about them in the deliberations and in the final selection. I didn't know until after the selection had been made and I had made my choice. Then I was informed by Emily Cook, who was overseeing the portal, that it was Adam Lemire of Gardner. Anything else? Great. So I'm just going to close by saying the symbols of our state, our flags, unite us as people. This is a really exciting opportunity for Mainers to share their perspectives. Do they prefer the 1901 version in its modern incarnation, or do they prefer the 1909 version that we have today? Ultimately, the voters will decide. It's question 5 on the ballot, but we are so incredibly grateful to Adam and to everyone who participated in the flag design contest for inspiring us and helping us remember what unites us as Mainers. Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you.
And Senator Nangle, do you want to say anything as a legislator? I realize. There's a quote from Senator Nangle in the release.
Yeah. I just, during the selection process, my feeling was that we should keep as true as possible to the historic 1901 flag. And part of the process, there were people on the panel, I guess, who don't support this bill. And I think that was important as well, is to have somebody who doesn't necessarily support the bill, but wanted to make sure that the flag that was an option is a beautiful flag, as they put it. And so I think that's important to note.
I did not understand for a minute, but that is absolutely accurate. I'm going to circle back. Representative Cale Ness didn't vote for the flag in its final iteration, but he did vote for this design. And thank you, Senator Nangle, for reminding me of that. He said regardless of what the Maine voters choose, he wanted to make sure that there was an excellent design moving forward. So when I invited him to advise me in the choice, he was very grateful for that opportunity and excited about putting forward a very terrific pine tree proper. So thank you for reminding me for that. So that unanimity, having someone who's going to be voting no in November and someone who's going to be voting yes, or I shouldn't reveal, maybe. Certainly the Honorable Sean Paulus will be voting yes. Having folks like that in the room, settling on this design together, I think was really important. Thank you for reminding me of that. Excellent.
Thank you.
Great.
Great. Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
we're happy to answer